A military dog halted at the entrance to the helicopter, declining to board even with direct orders and the presence of nearby enemy forces. His handler was confronted with a difficult decision: leave his faithful companion or disregard instructions and jeopardize the safety of everyone. However, when they eventually determined what the dog had sensed within the aircraft, it sent a wave of apprehension through the group. If they had departed according to schedule, none of them would have survived. Curious to learn the reason? Please subscribe and leave a comment indicating your location. Now let's begin. The night air hung thick with tension as Staff Sergeant Mike Connors pressed his back against the stone wall of the compound, night vision goggles revealing the green-hued landscape of the remote village. Beside him, Sergeant Taylor checked his weapon, a nervous habit that had become familiar during their months of deployments together. "Tell me again why we're doing this discreetly?" Taylor murmured, observing the shadows. "Because officially we shouldn't be 10 kilometers within this area," Mike responded. He was focused on both their discussion and the compound's interior, where they'd been documenting weapons caches for the past hour. Headquarters requires plausible deniability should complications arise. Rex, Mike's Belgian Malinois partner, was positioned between them, remaining watchful even after having traversed 12 miles of challenging ground from their insertion point. The dog's ears reacted to every noise, his strong frame holding restrained power. "Time to move," Mike stated, glancing at his watch. "We've obtained what we were looking for." They quietly advanced through the darkness towards the eastern wall, employing their well-rehearsed stealth. Their extraction helicopter would not be ready for another 2 hours, at a landing zone 5 miles from their position. That's when everything went wrong. The spotlight caught them halfway across the open space, followed by shouted commands in a language neither of them spoke. Rex's low growl served as the only warning before gunfire erupted from the guard tower. "Go!" Mike shouted, returning fire as Taylor sprinted for cover. The following moments descended into chaos, muzzle flashes briefly lighting the darkness, the distinct sound of AK-47 fire, and the heavy sound of boots as guards reacted to the alarm. They moved towards the perimeter, Rex staying near Mike's side, sometimes quickly moving forward to create space between the pursuers and the retreating Americans. Taylor was injured just as they reached the outer wall, a bullet passing through his right thigh. "I'm hit," he gasped, falling against the ground, blood already soaking through his tactical pants. Mike pulled him behind rocks as more bullets flew overhead. Their location was exposed, their initial exfil plan ruined, and the closest Allied forces were over 30 miles away. "Command, this is Bravo 6, Mike spoke into his comms. "Mission compromised, 1 wounded and under fire. Request immediate extraction at secondary LZ." The crackling response confirmed his concerns. "Negative, Bravo 6. The closest available unit is 40 minutes away. Can you avoid detection and move to the rally point?" Mike observed Taylor's pale expression, then glanced at Rex, who remained vigilant at the edge of the area, attentive and alert, perceiving a threat the humans did not. "Roger that," Mike responded. "Heading to the rally point. We require medical assistance." He addressed Rex, giving the quiet instruction that would decide their survival. "Locate an escape route, boy." Rex proceeded purposefully, guiding them away from the compound, through a ravine not shown on their tactical maps. The dog stopped intermittently, ears swiveling to pick up sounds beyond human perception, before selecting routes that kept them hidden from the search parties scouring the hills. "Your dog is remarkable," Taylor said, struggling through gritted teeth, as Mike partially carried him across a rocky streambed. The improvised tourniquet had lessened the bleeding, but Taylor's complexion grew paler with each minute. How could he know where to go? Rex was chosen for missions such as this, Mike explained, thankful for the dialogue that helped keep Taylor conscious. Belgian Malinois possess remarkable situational awareness. He is analyzing terrain, registering sensory input, listening for dangers, processing all of it faster than any technology we have. They stopped as Mike examined Taylor's wound. The projectile had exited cleanly, yet the hemorrhage was substantial. Taylor would be unable to traverse any significant distance without support. "Command, this is Bravo 6, Mike transmitted via comms. Hostile forces remained in pursuit. Sergeant Taylor's state was worsening. Request for extraction prioritization was initiated. The radio emitted static. Bravo 6, this is command. A friendly helicopter was rerouted to your location. Estimated time of arrival, 25 minutes at coordinates Delta 3. Mike consulted his navigation device. Delta 3 remained 3 kilometers distant, a manageable distance ordinarily, but with Taylor's injury and enemy patrols active in the vicinity, reaching it would be precarious. We will arrive, he told Taylor, although uncertainty likely reflected in his gaze. Simply abandon me, Taylor said feebly. I am only an impediment. That is not occurring, Mike stated resolutely. We all return or no one does. Rex abruptly stiffened, fur bristling as he focused on the darkness behind them. Mike swiftly extinguished their tactical light, drawing Taylor further into the darkness. Moments later, a search group passed within 30 meters of where they were, the enemy soldiers illuminating the area with flashlights. Continuing onward, the sound of rotor blades reached them distantly. Rex increased his speed, indicating they were approaching their target. The dog led them through a final stretch of dense brush before the terrain opened, revealing a small clearing nestled between hills, their designated landing zone. We made it, Mike said, assisting Taylor, whose body was becoming increasingly weak. Just a little further. The clearing was scarcely large enough to accommodate a helicopter. Mike helped Taylor to lie down behind some boulders, examining his wound again. The bleeding had lessened, but Taylor's skin felt cold and clammy, and his eyes were having difficulty focusing. Stay with me, man, Mike encouraged. The helicopter is nearly here. Rex moved to the edge of their cover, his posture tense as he surveyed the surroundings. In the distance, the characteristic sound of helicopter rotors became increasingly noticeable. Command, this is Bravo 6 at extraction point, Mike reported. Be advised, enemy forces remain in the area. Approach with caution. Roger, Bravo 6. Black Hawk is 2 minutes out. Pop smoke when you have visual. The helicopter emerged as a dark shape against the night sky. The lights dimmed as they initiated a tactical maneuver. Mike deployed a smoke canister, and the Black Hawk descended swiftly, dust kicked up by the rotor blades. The side door opened, and Captain Riley, the pilot, made an urgent hand gesture for them to enter. Move it, Riley yelled above the engine's roar. I'm detecting multiple heat signatures approaching from the south. Mike helped Taylor to his feet, partially pulling him towards the helicopter. Rex moved in front of them, his ears perked and attentive to any danger. Riley called out, her expression tense, "Get in now. We've got company coming." 20 yards from the helicopter, Taylor's legs gave out. Mike adjusted his grip, now practically carrying his teammate, as they closed the final distance to safety. Just as they reached the boarding ramp, Rex abruptly stopped. The change in the dog's demeanor was dramatic. His body stiffened, ears flat against his head, eyes fixed on the helicopter. As Mike issued the order to board, Rex retreated, letting out a quiet growl Mike hadn't experienced except during training. Rex, come, Mike instructed. The dog, however, remained in place, obstructing access to the helicopter. What's the delay? Riley called out, her gaze shifting between her instruments and the landscape. We need to be airborne immediately. Taylor leaned against Mike, appearing to be barely aware of his surroundings. What's the issue with the dog? Mike looked at Rex, puzzled. Over 3 years of operations, encompassing numerous helicopter insertions and extractions, Rex had consistently followed commands. The dog's training was flawless, his obedience complete until now. Something's wrong, Mike muttered. He wouldn't act like this without a reason. We don't have time for this, Riley called out. Enemy forces are less than a click away and closing. Mike observed Rex's rigid posture, then looked to the helicopter, and finally to Taylor's pale face. Each second they remained exposed, their danger grew. However, Rex's actions triggered a warning he couldn't dismiss. The dog wasn't simply refusing to enter. He was actively blocking their approach to the aircraft. Rex, heel, Mike commanded again, his tone more insistent. The dog remained steadfast, his eyes fixed on the helicopter, his body rigid with what Mike identified as an alert posture, not fear. What the hell is going on? Riley shouted above the rotor noise. Less than 2 minutes remained before potential compromise. Mike's thoughts accelerated. Rex, trained to identify explosives, weapons, and other dangers, was hesitant to approach the helicopter. Mike reported a possible threat to the aircraft and instructed Taylor to descend. Rex is detecting something, he said. Riley's face changed from impatience to worry. My pre-flight checks were clean. There's nothing wrong with this bird, I stated. The radio on Mike's tactical vest emitted static. Bravo 6, this is command. Satellite indicates multiple hostiles are moving towards your location. Evacuate immediately. Repeat, evacuate immediately. Taylor's head rested against Mike's shoulder, his voice a whisper. The dog is agitated. Abandon him. That's not happening, Mike responded resolutely. The Malinois wasn't demonstrating general fear. It was exhibiting a specific alert response, the type it had been trained to show when detecting a threat. Command is ordering immediate extraction, Riley announced. Fuel is being consumed while we wait. A decision is needed, Sergeant. Mike was familiar with the established procedures. The mission held the highest priority. Taylor's life was critically important. The predefined procedure for operations under duress was unambiguous. The extraction must be completed at any cost. However, Rex had never been incorrect. I require 1 minute, Mike said to Riley. We cannot afford a minute, Riley responded. Enemy combatants are closing in from the south and west. If we do not launch immediately, we will all be eliminated or taken prisoner. The radio emitted a burst of static, followed by the voice of Colonel Westmore, the operation commander. Staff Sergeant Connors, this is a direct order. Board that helicopter immediately. Mike paused, wrestling with his sense of obligation and the intuition that had protected him during 3 deployments. Sir, my K9 is signaling a possible danger to the aircraft. I request authorization to examine the area before boarding. Colonel Westmore responded, Negative, Sergeant. An unmanned enemy drone is approaching your location in under 2 minutes. You are out of time. Abandon the dog if needed. Leave that stupid fucking dog and get on the chopper. That's an order, Connors. Westmore's voice crackled through the static. Something broke inside Mike at those words. 3 years together, dozens of missions, countless lives saved, including his own. Rex wasn't equipment, he was his partner. He's not just a dog, Mike replied, his voice firm, and he's indicating a problem with the aircraft. Are you jeopardizing this entire operation because of an animal? Westmore's voice boomed over the radio. That helicopter is the only resource available in the area. Miss this extraction and there won't be a second chance. Taylor's breathing had become shallow. His skin was turning a gray color that Mike had seen countless times from battlefield injuries. Immediate medical assistance was crucial. Without it, he wouldn't survive. Riley had deactivated the main rotors to preserve fuel. The helicopter remained motionless in the clearing while she observed her instruments. Command wants us to abort, she relayed to Mike. Orders are to take off in 30 seconds, with or without you. Mike remained steadfast, Rex still positioned between them and the helicopter, his focus unbroken. Years of battlefield experience had instilled in Mike a single, vital understanding. In critical situations, instinct takes precedence over instructions. If you proceed without us, the mission is compromised, Mike relayed to Riley. Taylor possesses the crucial intelligence. Should he be captured or killed, all that we've endangered our lives for will be lost. Riley's face displayed a transition from frustration to doubt. Command is threatening to permanently restrict my operations if I disregard instructions. My professional standing is at stake. So is mine, Mike responded. Rex is the top detection dog in the regiment. If he indicates a problem with that helicopter, there is a problem. The radio emitted static again, Westmore's voice now laced with anger. Captain Riley, you are instructed to take off immediately. Abandon Connors and the wounded if they are unwilling to board. That is a direct order. Following a moment of suspense, Riley removed her headset and exited the helicopter. Colonel Westmore, she said, speaking directly into the radio, this is Captain Riley. I will look into the K9's alert and will report back. Without waiting for a reply, She turned off the radio, cutting off Westmore's objection. You've just signed your own discharge papers, Mike said softly. Riley shrugged. Perhaps, but I've observed these dogs operate previously. If yours is this certain, it would be unwise not to verify. Riley tossed her flight helmet into the cockpit and moved forward cautiously, pausing a short distance from where Rex kept his alert position. What is he trained to detect? She asked. Explosives, weapons, chemical agents, Mike replied. But he's also cross-trained for mechanical anomalies. Dogs can detect subtle changes in machinery that instruments miss. Riley's professional skepticism conflicted with her pilot's instinct for caution. I performed a complete pre-flight check before takeoff. All systems were nominal. Mike nodded toward Rex. He disagrees. A moan from Taylor brought their attention back to her. The wounded soldier's condition was worsening rapidly, his face now ashen. We need to get him treatment sooner, he won't make it, Mike stated urgently. Riley looked back at the helicopter, then surveyed the surrounding terrain where enemy forces were approaching. I'm giving this 5 minutes, she decided. If we don't find anything by then, we fly. Dog or no dog. Deal, Mike agreed quickly. Rex, find it. The command freed the Malinois from his blocking position. Rather than entering the helicopter, Rex commenced a careful sweep around the aircraft, his nose working with focus as he detected something undetectable to the humans. Rex's concentration grew stronger on the port side close to the engine housing. His posture altered slightly, ears pointing forward, tail rigid, movements more precise. He's nearing something, he communicated to Riley. This is the way he acts when he's pinpointing a target. Riley observed with increasing worry as Rex stopped under the main rotor assembly, his nose directed upward towards the engine housing. The dog glanced back at Mike, then looked again at the engine, his stance now stiff with alertness. He's found something, Mike confirmed. It's inside the engine compartment. Riley paused briefly before deciding. I need to check it, she stated, climbing onto the helicopter skid to reach the maintenance panel. Should a mechanical problem be significant enough for your dog to identify, I require notification prior to takeoff. As she reached for the access panel, a distant crack resonated across the clearing, a rifle shot from the advancing enemy forces. They've located us, Mike warned, drawing his sidearm. We're out of time. Riley's expression became resolute as she operated the latches on the access panel. Then let's hope your dog is correct and we can repair whatever he's found in the next 3 minutes. The maintenance panel creaked open, exposing the intricate network of fuel lines and hydraulic controls. Riley directed her tactical flashlight into the space, carefully examining the parts. Report, Riley, Mike called out to her. What's your assessment? Riley's features shifted as her light caught something at the back of the compartment. I'm seeing a hairline fracture in the main fuel feed line, she stated, her voice strained. Fuel was leaking onto the hot section housing. How bad? Mike asked. Riley moved to get a better view with her light. The crack was severe enough that flight vibrations would have widened it within minutes once cruising altitude was reached. She didn't complete the sentence, but her concerned expression conveyed the gravity of the situation. Catastrophic failure, Mike asked directly. Riley confirmed. Mid-air fuel line rupture feeding directly onto superheated engine components. Best case, emergency landing in hostile territory. The most severe possibility is fire and explosion, Mike determined. This appears to be damage caused by temperature changes, she stated. The sandstorms allow fine particles to spread everywhere, particularly affecting engine parts. A gunshot sounded nearer now, followed by shouts echoing in the distance. Can you repair it? Mike asked urgently. Riley hesitated, biting her lip. Perhaps. I possess a field repair kit, but it's intended for hydraulic lines, not fuel feeds. It might last long enough to get us back to base, but I can't guarantee it. The dog's ears suddenly perked up, his focus directed towards the ridge line where shadows moved against the night sky. They're getting closer, Mike warned. Whatever you're going to do it quickly. Riley went to the cockpit, returning with a compact repair kit. I need 5 minutes, she said, climbing back up to the engine compartment. Maybe less if your dog's observation saves us from having to troubleshoot. Mike gently scratched Rex behind the ears. Good boy, he murmured, the best boy. Riley worked with practiced efficiency, her fingers moving deftly despite the awkward angle and poor lighting. The specialized epoxy compound she applied needed to create a temporary seal strong enough to withstand the pressure of flight. "This repair won't pass any inspection," she muttered, wrapping a reinforcing mesh around the crack. "But it might get us home." Mike stood at the perimeter, rifle ready as he surveyed the advancing hillside. The enemy fighters were moving steadily closer, utilizing the terrain for cover. "How much longer?" he inquired of Riley. "Almost there," she responded, not looking up from her task. "The compound needs another 60 seconds to set properly before I can pressurize the system." Rex abruptly froze, his focus fixed on the eastern approach to the clearing. A low growl resonated in his chest. Mike quickly noticed the alteration in behavior. "They're closer than we thought," he murmured to Riley. "Rex has them." The dog's ears were pressed against his head, his body tense. Mike lifted his rifle, peering through the tactical scope to survey the area Rex was fixated on. There, a brief movement against the rocks. 2 individuals, potentially 3, were moving in a flanking maneuver as the primary force advanced from the west. "Riley," Mike called quietly, his voice filled with urgency. "Enemy contacts are approaching from behind, less than 100 meters and closing rapidly. We must depart immediately." Riley completed the last application of sealant, her actions swift but accurate. She stated, 30 more seconds are needed for the minimum curing time, as she already began closing the access panel. A shorter time would risk the patch failing during takeoff. "Rex," Mike instructed quietly, "protect Taylor." The Malinois instantly moved to position himself guardedly next to the unconscious soldier. Mike established a defensive posture, rifle firmly against his shoulder. The initial muzzle flash appeared on the eastern ridge. A rifle shot followed, accompanied by the sound of a bullet passing above. Mike fired in measured bursts, prioritizing suppression over attempts to hit targets obscured by distance. Under fire, he called out as additional shots echoed from several locations. 10 seconds, Riley responded, noting the helicopter's rotors initiating their startup sequence. Rex emitted a sharp bark, signaling movement from another direction. Mike turned, observing 3 more fighters advancing from the southern edge of the clearing. He discharged another burst, causing them to retreat for cover. "We need to load Taylor now," Riley called over the intensifying rotor noise. "The patch will either hold or it won't, but we're running out of time." Mike secured his rifle and hurried to Taylor's side, lifting the injured soldier in a fireman's carry. The volume of enemy fire increased as he advanced towards the helicopter, bullets impacting the earth close by and ricocheting from the aircraft's armored underside. The key uncertainty lingered. Would Rex now enter the helicopter of his own accord, given the mechanical problem was resolved? Mike paused at the boarding ramp, glancing toward his canine partner. "Rex, come a bordo." The instant lingered as Rex stood at the ramp's edge. His focus remained on the engine compartment, the location of the repair. Without hesitation, the dog jumped into the cabin, indicating his approval of Riley's work. "He's good with it," Mike shouted to Riley as he secured Taylor on the cabin floor. "Let's go." The helicopter lifted shakily, its engine straining as Riley performed an emergency takeoff procedure. Mike took position at the open door, rifle ready as enemy fire continued to strike the aircraft's underside. A violent shudder ran through the aircraft as something struck the tail section. Alert signals illuminated Riley's instrument panel, yet she kept the aircraft steady, sharply turning eastward to create space from the attacking fighters. She relayed that the tail rotor had sustained damage, her hands swiftly adjusting the controls, managing to keep the helicopter operational, albeit precariously. A rapid detonation occurred on the hillside, an RPG having narrowly missed them. The blast's impact jolted the helicopter, causing a brief spin that Riley struggled to correct. "They possess substantial weaponry, we skate," Mike exclaimed, observing yet another combatant identified by the recognizable barrel of a rocket launcher. Another RPG whizzed past them, narrowly avoiding the primary rotor by a few inches before exploding in the night sky beyond. The helicopter vibrated once more, alarms sounding in the cockpit as systems neared their operational boundaries. As Mike reached for the radio, a frightening new sound pierced the helicopter's noise. A high-pitched whine emanated from the engine compartment, followed by a metallic snap that echoed through the airframe. Riley's eyes widened in alarm as warning indicators illuminated her panel. Fuel pressure was decreasing, the patch was failing. Riley swiftly manipulated the controls, making quick adjustments to preserve altitude. She rerouted fuel flow, deactivated non-essential systems, and reported we might reach Outpost Delta if the secondary lines remain functional. Rex proceeded to the cockpit entrance, his focus returning to the engine compartment. However, unlike his earlier vigilant stance, the dog now simply observed, his ears pricked forward, seemingly assessing the circumstances. "I think your dog is performing systems checks," Riley remarked with a tense laugh. "He keeps looking directly at the location of that fuel line." Another mechanical groan arose from the engine, accompanied by a brief increase in power. The aircraft stabilized, establishing a rhythm despite the damage and strained repairs. "I believe the epoxy is resealing as it warms," Riley stated, a cautious hope evident in her voice as she examined the instruments. "Pressure is stabilizing, it's not ideal, but potentially sufficient to get us home." Mike engaged the communication system. "Command, this is Bravo 6, we are airborne with one critically wounded. Helicopter sustained damage during extraction. We are requesting an emergency medical team at Outpost Delta, ETA 20 minutes. Static filled the airwaves as Colonel Westmore's voice cut through. His previous frustration vanished, replaced by a calm, professional demeanor. "Copy that, Bravo 6 medical team standing by, what's your aircraft status?" Captain Riley grasped the handset. "This is Captain Riley, aircraft operational but damaged. Tail rotor compromised, fuel system patched. We'll make it to Delta, but this bird won't fly again without major repairs." Westmore responded. "Understood. Priority is getting our people home safe." "Well done, Captain. Excellent work, Staff Sergeant." The lights of Outpost Delta became visible on the horizon. This was a comforting sight following the difficult flight. Riley had kept the helicopter at a reduced altitude, carefully managing the damaged systems and maximizing the aircraft's capabilities. She announced, with noticeable relief, 5 minutes remaining, noting that a medical team should be ready. To Mike's surprise, Taylor's eyes opened briefly. The dog, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the engine noise, was right. "Yes, he was," Mike agreed, signaling Rex to come closer. The Malinois approached carefully, seeming to understand the fragility of the wounded soldier. "He saved all of us." The helicopter descended toward the brightly lit landing pad, its movement sluggish, but controlled under Riley's expert handling. Upon landing, medical staff quickly moved forward with a stretcher, and ground crew positioned fire suppression equipment around the aircraft. Taylor was transferred to the medical team, with Mike providing a quick summary of his condition as preparations began to move him to the field hospital. As Taylor was transported, Riley exited the cockpit, her flight suit marked with hydraulic fluid and sweat. With exhaustion visible in her movements, but satisfaction in her eyes, she addressed Mike and Rex. "Your dog," she said, shaking her head in amazement, "just saved 3 lives in a $12 million aircraft." If that fuel line had ruptured at altitude, she trailed off, leaving the implications clear to both of them. Colonel Westmore then approached from the command center, his expression unreadable as he stopped before them. A brief, tense silence fell as Mike prepared for the expected rebuke. Unexpectedly, Westmore offered his hand. "That was some of the finest judgment I've seen in 20 years of command, Sergeant Connors," he said, astonishing both Mike and Riley. Prioritizing his canine partner over direct orders demonstrated courage. He then knelt before Rex, who displayed impeccable military bearing, even after the challenges of the extended mission. Regarding this soldier, Westmore stated, with evident respect in his voice, "I believe there's a stake in the officer's mess bearing his name." Following Westmore's departure, Riley addressed Mike. "I've been flying for 12 years, she said softly, "and never once questioned my pre-flight checks or the maintenance team's work. If your dog hadn't stopped us," she shook her head, unable to finish the thought. "That's why we trust them," Mike responded briefly. Despite potential failures in technology, established procedures, and even directives, they still observe what remains unseen. Rex rested against Mike's leg, exhibiting signs of tiredness now that the immediate threat had subsided. Considering that this dog had traversed miles of challenging terrain, identified a crucial mechanical fault, and rescued 3 lives during a single night, it appeared to be a deserved display of weariness. "Come on, boy," he said softly. "Let's go check on Taylor, and then I believe someone promised you chicken." Have you ever observed an animal perceiving danger that humans missed? The remarkable capabilities of certain animals, particularly trained military and police dogs, frequently determine the difference between life and death in crucial situations. Would you rely on your animal's instincts even if it required disregarding direct orders? Staff Sergeant Connors confronted this challenging decision, and his belief and his partner protected everyone on that mission. Share your opinions in the comments below. If this incredible story of canine heroism impressed you, please like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing tales. Click the bell icon to turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Share this video with friends who appreciate the extraordinary bond between handlers and their canine partners. Check out our previous canine stories appearing on your screen now. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with a brand new video. The service dog remains stationed outside his former handler's room, stubbornly resisting attempts by staff to relocate him. "He doesn't even recognize you," one nurse observed. "He's too far gone." Despite this, the dog persisted. Then, one morning, he calmly positioned himself before the veteran, and suddenly, deeply buried, traumatic memories resurfaced. What actions did the dog take, and what did the veteran ultimately recall? Please subscribe and leave a comment indicating your location. Let's begin. The VA psychiatric facility's fluorescent lights created stark shadows as Sergeant Thomas Grady gazed blankly out the window. 6 months had elapsed since his transfer from Walter Reed, but time felt insignificant within the mental fog he experienced. The sound of rain on the window reflected the scattered recollections that briefly appeared, then vanished before he could hold onto them. "Good morning, Sergeant Grady," a voice said from the entrance. Dr. Elaine Monroe stood there with his file, her demeanor carefully empathetic. "How are you feeling today?" Thomas didn't respond. "The same as yesterday, Doc." His voice held the strained quality of a man who had recently been giving commands above the sound of weapons fire. The mark along his jawline was just an outward sign of the IED's impact. The real harm was hidden beneath his skull, where memories had been broken like glass. "Your latest scans show continued physical healing," Dr. Monroe began, settling into a chair. "Spare me the medical details," Thomas interrupted. 6 months of tests, and all of you can tell me is that I should remember. But I don't." These sudden shifts from clarity to disorientation had become a defining feature of his condition. He shifted abruptly, first displaying the bearing of a soldier, then becoming agitated, seemingly overtaken by disjointed memories without explanation. "You served as a sergeant in the 5th Special Forces. 3 tours in Afghanistan, injured 6 months ago in Kandahar," she pointed out, reiterating their established routine. "So you keep telling me," Thomas responded, a hint of frustration in his voice. "But it's just words. I don't feel it." The medical personnel approached Thomas with care. 3 orderlies had been injured during his previous episodes. His physical strength had returned more quickly than his mental stability, making him a potential hazard when combat memories elicited reactions without a clear connection. Dr. Monroe had accepted his case after 2 prior psychiatrists requested transfers. While others perceived a liability, she identified a distressed veteran caught between recollections and a loss of awareness. "Today, we are going to attempt a different approach," she stated. Thomas laughed, a sound laced with cynicism. "Another quick fix?" Dr. Monroe responded, "Not at all. An unforeseen package has arrived for you. It seems to be from the past." A disturbance in the East Corridor caused people to notice as a uniformed officer guided a Belgian Malinois through security. The dog's ears stood up suddenly, its eyes fixed on Thomas from 30 yards away. Before the handler could respond, the Malinois pulled forward, drawing the officer a few steps. "Heel," the handler ordered firmly. Something about the command heel made Thomas feel a strange tremor, although he couldn't remember why. As staff gathered around the visitors, he withdrew to his room. Shortly after, Dr. Monroe arrived at his door, carrying a file. "Sergeant Grady," she said, "there's someone who might be of interest to you. A military working dog named Valor. These documents indicate he served as your canine partner for 14 months in Afghanistan." Thomas looked without expression. "I have no recollection of a dog." Dr. Monroe acknowledged, "That's understandable considering your current state, but Valor's handler has records confirming he was your assigned partner during your final deployment." "My partner?" Thomas repeated, the words feeling unfamiliar. "That's impossible. I would remember that. Would you?" Dr. Monroe asked softly. "You don't remember your squad mates or commanding officer?" Before Thomas could answer, a disturbance arose in the hallway. The Malinois had broken free and raced to Thomas's door, ears forward, body vibrating with energy. "Get that thing out of here," Thomas shouted, stepping back. Something about the dog's intense focus made him uneasy. The handler appeared shortly after, offering an apology as he reattached the leash. "I'm sorry, sir. He's never acted like this. Valor is typically very well behaved." "I don't know this animal," Thomas retorted, "and I don't want it close." The dog emitted a low whine, a sound unexpectedly unsettling, given its earlier assertive behavior. His gaze remained fixed on Thomas. "This wasn't part of my agreement," Dr. Monroe clarified. "Your previous superior officer arranged this. He thought that seeing Valor could potentially stimulate memory recall." Thomas looked at the dog, experiencing only annoyance. "It isn't working. Please remove him." As the handler began to take Valor away, the dog hesitated, firmly positioning his paws at the doorway. The resistance wasn't hostile, but resolute. "I will permit Valor to stay for a short time," Dr. Monroe stated. "Not in your room, but in the shared spaces." Thomas turned away, showing indifference. "Do as you please. You always do." As they led Valor away, the dog turned, his gaze lingering on Thomas. A soft whine, laced with a palpable sense of recognition and sorrow, escaped his lips. In the days that followed, staff noticed a peculiar pattern in Valor's behavior. The Malinois consistently positioned himself along Thomas's path, seemingly waiting. During physical therapy, Valor would appear in the hallway, pressed against the glass, his eyes fixed on Thomas. While Thomas was eating in the common area, the dog would position himself exactly 12 feet away, near enough to watch, but at a distance that caused Thomas discomfort. "He's acting like he's conducting surveillance," commented Jim, an orderly with a background in the Marines. "That's a tactical placement." On the fourth night, security cameras recorded Valor entering the supply closet where Thomas kept his personal belongings. The dog removed his combat boots and brought them to his door, setting them carefully at the threshold. Thomas found the boots the following morning. Instead of his typical anger regarding unwanted entries, he paused, observing them before storing them in his closet, a change from how he had handled previous items. The subsequent night, Valor brought forward another item, a set of dog tags. These, too, were positioned at Thomas's door with thoughtful placement. During therapy sessions, Valor remained outside Dr. Monroe's office. During challenging periods when Thomas's frustration grew close to violence, the dog would scratch at the door until someone opened it, then position himself between Thomas and the doctor, not aggressively but protectively. "He's not threatening," Dr. Monroe observed. "He's intervening, attempting to calm Thomas." Particularly insightful were unguarded moments. Surveillance footage showed Thomas watching Valor from his window. Personnel observed him possessing the dog tags Valor had provided, a personal link he was unwilling to admit. By the second week, the equilibrium between Thomas's opposition and Valor's continued efforts started to weaken. The critical moment occurred during a group therapy session Thomas had hesitantly participated in. 5 veterans were sharing experiences about their returns from war. When another veteran recounted losing his closest friend, it sparked a sudden, intense flashback in Thomas. "Get down!" Thomas yelled, tackling the Vietnam-era veteran across from him. "Sniper on the ridge! Get down or you're dead!" Chaos erupted as Thomas, lost in a combat scenario, dragged the terrified man toward perceived cover. Staff attempted restraint, but Thomas's combat training made him formidable, even confused. Somehow, Valor pushed his way through 2 doors and rushed into the room. Instead of attacking, he positioned himself between Thomas and the staff. The dog leaned against Thomas's legs, then made a circle around him before settling directly in front of him, its eyes fixed on his face. The impact was instant. Thomas stilled, his anger giving way to bewilderment. Then, a sudden realization as he dropped to his knees. What is going on? He whispered, looking around as if he were seeing the room for the very first time. The link was short-lived. As personnel attended to his victim, Thomas's confusion shifted to fury. Not directed at the veteran, but at Valor. What in the world is this, huh? He shouted, scrambling backward. Was this some kind of trick? Using animals to manipulate him? The incident led to an emergency staff meeting. Thomas had barricaded himself in his room, refusing meals and medication. This dog is triggering severe reactions, the facility director argued. We have other patients to consider. After debate, a compromise was reached. Valor would have 48 hours before being returned to the military program. The following morning, Thomas was in the garden, experiencing disjointed memories. He didn't realize Valor was near until the dog positioned itself directly in front of him. Go away, Thomas snapped. I asked them to keep you away. Valor remained still, amber eyes focused intently on Thomas's face. Thomas stood up quickly. I said, go back. I don't recognize you. He began to walk away, but lost his balance as another memory surfaced. The village again. This time, a chemical smell was present beneath the dust. The sudden dizziness caused him to drop to one knee. When his sight returned, Valor was still present, resolute. What do you want? Thomas asked, his voice trembling. He pushed the dog with both hands. Valor endured the force, remaining unmoved. A quiet whine escaped, not of suffering, but of resolve. Get away, Thomas yelled, retreating rapidly. I don't know you. I don't remember you. His back struck the garden wall. Thomas slumped down, drawing his knees to his chest protectively. The weight of his circumstances overwhelmed him. A man without memory, his identity solely defined by the accounts of others. He existed between fleeting recollections and a vacant present. Just leave me alone, he murmured. The expected respite didn't arrive. Instead, Valor approached with measured composure. The Malinois made a single rotation, then settled with a controlled, ritualistic gesture. He extended himself before Thomas, resting his head directly on the toe of his boot in a defined posture, chin lowered, ears pricked, eyes positioned to meet Thomas's gaze when lifted. Thomas remained perfectly still. The particular angle of Valor's head, the weight on his boot, triggered a surge of recognition. The garden seemed to waver, superimposed with a different image. Dusty terrain, tactical equipment, night vision, and this very same pressure against his boot. Wait, the stance. Thomas spoke, the words coming naturally. Hold position. Valor's ears moved forward at the instruction, becoming even more still. Thomas looked at the dog, his heart pounding as pieces began to fit together. I know this. I know you. The orderly radioed softly for Dr. Monroe, understanding something important was occurring. With shaking fingers, Thomas reached out, pausing just above Valor's head. Upon making contact, Valor emitted a sound of such palpable relief, it was almost like a human expression. We trained together, Thomas stated, and memories began to coalesce for the first time since his injury. North Carolina, you were just a year old. You failed the standard program because you wouldn't leave my side during separation tests. Each word contributed to a clearer picture. Thomas gently scratched behind Valor's ear, precisely where the dog enjoyed it. A movement his body recalled instinctively. You slept at the foot of my bunk, Thomas said, his voice softening, radiating certainty and familiarity. Against regulations. Sanders protected us because you consistently reported his concealed whiskey supply. Dr. Monroe observed from the garden entrance, directing staff to maintain a distance. Thomas's fingers located a notch in Valor's left ear, a mended split almost imperceptible beneath the fur. A sniper round came too close in Cunard Province. Should have heeded the alert sooner. Valor pressed his head more firmly against Thomas's hand, reinforcing the connection. I used to tell the guys you were smarter than half the lieutenants. Thomas's fingers traced along Valor's neck, finding an old scar beneath the fur. You took shrapnel intended for me outside Kandahar. Dr. Monroe approached cautiously. Thomas, you're remembering. He looked up, his eyes clearer than she had ever seen. Not everything. Just him. Valor. The name felt correct now. We worked together. He was my responsibility and I was his. Your commanding officer believed your connection might break through the amnesia, Dr. Monroe explained. Memory is complex. Sometimes emotional connections access pathways logical thinking cannot reach. Thomas nodded, his hand never leaving Valor's fur. The details of the incident, the cause of the injury, and the reason for the separation remain unclear. However, this represents a significant improvement, Thomas stated gently, observing Valor's unwavering gaze. He never forgot, Thomas said softly, meeting Valor's steady gaze. Even when I did. Valor adjusted their posture, rising to sit upright next to Thomas instead of facing him, transitioning from a defensive stance to the collaborative positioning they had consistently used throughout numerous missions. Thomas refined his posture, his hand resting on Valor's back with comfortable familiarity. I need to recall more, he stated, his voice filled with renewed resolve. I must understand what transpired with us. In the days that followed, Thomas and Valor remained constantly together. Each hour yielded fresh recollections, as the dog's presence seemed to release long-blocked memories. We were deployed together 3 times, Thomas recounted to Dr. Monroe during a therapy session. The first deployment was a standard patrol and explosive detection mission. The second time, their duties changed to direct action assignments, a result of their effective teamwork. Village clearance operations were a primary focus. Valor was capable of detecting not only explosives but also concealed individuals and weapon storage areas. He had a distinct method of signaling for various dangers. 1 ear twitch indicated explosives, 2 signaled hidden personnel. He saved our unit on numerous occasions. Dr. Monroe observed that Thomas's speech patterns had changed. He displayed increased confidence, utilizing military terminology precisely, and a soldier's rhythm returning to his voice. Thomas acknowledged. Having him here connects me to who I was. I still have gaps. Significant recollections emerged, prompted by specific cues. The framework provided context. Certain actions by Valor triggered related memories. For example, when the dog pressed his nose against Thomas's knee, Thomas remembered their established communication system. When Valor brought a tennis ball, Thomas recalled playing fetch behind their barracks after missions. Michaels, Thomas stated abruptly during a walk through the facility, Specialist Kevin Michaels, our unit's communication expert. I consistently kept butterscotch candies for Valor, even though I cautioned him against giving my dog sweets. By evening, Thomas began constructing a timeline, recording names and events upon our return. He included Jenkins, Rodriguez, and Patel. Captain Ellis led our unit. Lieutenant Cooper served as our immediate commanding officer. He was a good man, willing to listen when others might have asserted authority. When reflecting on a mission where a team member was lost, Thomas appeared visibly upset. Valor rested his head on Thomas's knee, a gesture that steadied him and kept the memory from escalating into a full-blown flashback. The last mission, Thomas began, his voice low. A mountain village close to the Pakistan border. A high-value target was using it as a waypoint. He struggled to break through the mental wall he's built to protect himself from reliving those events. I recall the approach, the village's layout, the teams splitting up. Valor and I secured the eastern buildings. Valor's ears perked up, his body stiffening as if recalling the same event. There was an ambush, Thomas recounted. It wasn't arbitrary, they were anticipating our arrival. The coordination was exceptional. Someone had compromised our operation. His breathing accelerated. Gunfire erupted from numerous locations. Radio communications were disrupted. Men were injured. We were trapped in a courtyard enclosed by buildings. Thomas's hand gripped Valor's fur.
Valor signal.
Not concerning enemy fire, we knew their locations. Something different. He continued attempting to obstruct my way, issuing the explosive signal, but he denied it with a head shake. That's where the memory breaks apart once more. I recall his warning. Then, only noise, pressure, and darkness. That's sufficient for today, Dr. Monroe stated kindly. You've achieved significant advancement. The key moment occurred when a delivery truck backfired in the parking lot. The sound reverberated through the recreation room where Thomas was playing chess. He crouched, pulling the other veteran down, scanning for threats. "ID!" he shouted, completely consumed by memory. This time, the memory played out with perfect clarity. We had cleared 2 buildings, Thomas explained later. Valor pressed against his side. Michaels and Cooper were pinned down. Ellis was coordinating extraction. Valor and I were moving to provide support when heavy fire erupted. His hand instinctively went to a scar on his arm. We reached the stone wall, and that's when the situation changed. Thomas explained that Valor's behavior altered, moving from measured alerts to frantic efforts to prevent our progress. He repeatedly issued the explosive warning, but I wasn't detecting the expected triggers. There was no disturbed earth, no visible wires. His voice tightened. I initially believed he was disoriented by the gunfire. I instructed him to advance twice, and twice he declined, a behavior he had never exhibited before. Valor emitted a soft whine, seemingly recalling the event. Rodriguez was in distress, requesting assistance. I issued the instruction, authorizing movement, disregarding Valor's caution. Thomas momentarily closed his eyes. I directed him to provide healing, employing the command that bypasses his safety protocols. During the process, Valor violated procedure entirely. He attacked me, clamping onto my tactical vest, attempting to pull me back. I felt a surge of anger, believing his training had failed. I instructed him to release his grip and resume his task. Thomas's voice lowered. He complied with that final instruction. However, his posture indicated a problem. His ears were flattened, his tail tucked, and he moved as if he were being forced toward execution. 10 meters from Rodriguez, Valor abruptly surged forward, emitting his most urgent bark. That's when I noticed it. Almost invisible wires connected to a pressure plate located beneath Rodriguez. The IED wasn't intended for a single soldier, but for any responding team. Rodriguez had activated the initial sensor, but his weight was insufficient. Any additional weight would trigger the explosion. Valor had known all along. He moved forward, attempting to disarm the trigger, because I wasn't paying attention. I finally grasped the situation and began calling for assistance. I had just activated my radio when the explosion resulted in Rodriguez's immediate death, critically wounded Thomas, and physically distanced him from Valor. My final recollection prior to Walter Reed was Valor standing watch over me, suffering from shrapnel wounds, securing the area while I was unable to move. Thomas looked at the dog, his expression filled with years of emotion. I failed him. He provided every warning, and I disregarded them. You didn't fail him, Dr. Monroe said gently. You made a judgment call that they're trying to save your teammate, and Valor never gave up on you. That's why I couldn't remember, Thomas realized. My last thought was that I'd killed Rodriguez and endangered everyone by ignoring Valor. The mind protects us from what we can't process, Dr. Monroe explained. Thomas nodded, hand resting on Valor's back. I'm ready now. The following weeks brought a remarkable transformation. Thomas's memories resurfaced in a controlled manner as a significant obstacle dissolved. While Thomas regained his strength, Valor started briefly engaging with other struggling veterans, placing himself close to them before returning to Thomas. He has always possessed the ability to perceive when someone is in distress, Thomas noted. This quality distinguished him, allowing him to understand people better than they understood themselves. The morning of Thomas's discharge dawned with autumn sunlight streaming through golden leaves. His belongings were carefully packed: clothes, medications, a journal, and letters from former unit members. Valor observed the packing, remaining alert but composed. His military vest had been returned, accompanied by retirement documents should Thomas choose that option. Dr. Monroe knocked on the door, asking, "Everything ready?" Thomas nodded, securing his duffel bag. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Your sister has confirmed she will meet you?" "Yes, it still feels strange. Reconnecting with family I barely knew months ago. Have you decided about Valor? Thomas's expression became thoughtful. I'd like to discuss this one last time, he said. They walked to the garden, the site of their breakthrough, with Valor accompanying them. I've observed how Valor interacts with other veterans, Thomas began. It's not solely with me that he finds connection. It's with anyone experiencing the darkness I once knew, Dr. Monroe affirmed. His support for patients in crisis has been extraordinary. That's what distinguished him in combat, Thomas clarified. Typically, military dogs are trained to identify particular dangers. Valor consistently recognized when something was amiss even before we possessed confirming data. He perceived changes in human actions that even seasoned soldiers failed to notice. Thomas stroked Valor's back. I always believed our bond distinguished him, he said. Now I realize it's inherent to him, this capacity to perceive distress. Dr. Monroe observed, You're contemplating leaving him here? Thomas affirmed. A part of me wants to bring him back with me. He's more than just a dog. He was the one who found me when I was lost. Valor leaned against Thomas's leg, seemingly to show understanding. However, I often think about others, still trapped where I once was. Veterans with no means of return. Thomas's voice grew strained. Valor discovered a route when others could not. How many others might he be able to assist? We've considered developing a therapy program based on your experience, Dr. Monroe stated. He won't simply be involved in it, Thomas emphasized. He would be central to it, a guide for healing through bonds we don't completely understand. Ultimately, Thomas knelt before Valor, looking him directly in the face. You have consistently understood your purpose better than anyone, he said gently, holding the dog's face with his hands. In Afghanistan, in this place, you have never forgotten what is important. Valor's focus was complete, his attention unwavering. My time of service is over, Thomas continued steadily. But yours is just beginning. Others need you now as I needed you. Those who are lost and uncertain of their return. Thomas touched his forehead to Valor's. You will guide them as you guided me. And once that task is done, I will be waiting. Thomas rose, regaining composure with military precision. Dr. Monroe will care for you. I will visit. This isn't farewell. The simply new assignments. He squared his shoulders. Valor, remain, he requested softly. A flicker of conflict briefly appeared in the dog's posture, a clash between instinct and years of training related to warring. Then, Valor composed himself into a flawless sit, holding steady eye contact. Thomas acknowledged him with a single nod, a gesture of respect between peers, not master and dog. He then turned and departed, each stride demanding significant control. He made no backward glances. I'm out. Valor remained in a seated, attentive position, observing his partner's departure. Only after Thomas disappeared did the dog turn to Dr. Monroe, a silent understanding passing between them. While one mission had ended, another was beginning. Have you ever witnessed the extraordinary bond between a service animal and their human partner? The way they seem to communicate without words, understanding needs that go beyond basic commands. Valor and Thomas's story serves as a reminder that healing can originate from unforeseen places, and that profound bonds can endure even amidst memory loss. Considering Thomas's circumstances, one must wonder, would you possess the fortitude to part with a devoted companion, understanding their potential to guide others out of hardship, mirroring the support they offered you? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more extraordinary tales of service dogs and the lives they transform. Click the notification bell so you never miss our new uploads. Share this video with friends and family who appreciate the remarkable bond between humans and their canine companions. Be sure to check out our other canine hero stories now on screen, including the incredible story of a search and rescue dog who found a lost child during the worst blizzard in decades. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with another brand new video.